What's up, guys, and welcome in to an Auburn recap edition of the Rally Time podcast. I'm your host, once again, as always, Justin Babin Jr. Christian, as always, back in the producer's chair. And Christian, it was a disappointing weekend, to say the least, as LSU got swept. They lost all three games on the Plains to the Auburn Tigers.
Yep.
Really disappointing setback for the Tigers. They're still 10-5 through the first half of SEC play. 15 of 30 games have been played, and LSU's 10-5, which is still pretty good. Like, it's way better than you were a season ago. At this point, last season, you were 3-12, and you're 10-5 now. But, yeah, I mean, the weekend was disappointing. I thought, I know I predicted LSU to win 2 out of 3. I thought that this lineup would have a chance after Sam Dutton to really get after some of the back-end guys for the Auburn pitching staff. We both predicted LSU to win last week in this series, and unfortunately, it didn't pan out the way we thought, Christian, as LSU lost all 3 games against Auburn. They lost Game 1, 8-4, Game 2, 4-2, and yesterday's game, Sunday, by a final score of 3-2. They dropped all 3 games this weekend, and the bottom line, simply put, the offense just wasn't that good this weekend. They weren't good enough this weekend. The offense really kind of let the team down in a lot of clutch spots, especially in games 2 and 3 on Saturday and Sunday. Yeah, it was an underwhelming performance, to say the least, by the LSU team as a whole, but mainly the one I'm really confused about is the offense, because we've seen how good this offense is and how much talent they have, and we've seen it all season. They've been really good all season. They just didn't really have it this weekend. They really didn't. Sam Dutton, who started Friday night in Game 1, he was dominant. He just shut the LSU bats down in 6 scoreless innings. And then in Games 2 and 3, LSU left a bunch of runners on base in Games 2 and 3. It's not like they didn't have their opportunities to score. It's just with 2 outs and the bases loaded, or 2 outs and runners on second and third, LSU either struck out or hit a lot of pop flies to end the inning and couldn't scratch those runs across the board when they needed them the most. Saturday, the LSU offense hit 15 flyouts, and they also, Sunday, hit 12 flyouts. So they hit 15 flyouts Saturday, 12 on Sunday. And it just was not a good approach at the plate. I thought they were aggressive, too aggressive at some times, trying to get after the Auburn pitchers, where the Auburn pitchers gave them, a little bit, struggle with command, especially, Sunday, I believe. At least walked a couple, the Auburn pitching staff did, but LSU was never able to really capitalize off of that. Friday night, the LSU bat struck out 12 times, which was a new season high. They had only struck out 11 times in a previous game earlier in the season, but they struck out 12 times on Friday night, new season high, and then they were just too aggressive and started chasing at the plate, chasing pitches out of the zone, even when Auburn pitchers were, willing to give things up. It's just, LSU was too aggressive sometimes at the plate, and we're just chasing, I don't think the LSU pitching staff was bad this weekend. I really don't. They obviously gave up a lot more runs than they did in the Oklahoma series, sure, but, if you had told me going into this weekend that in Game 2, LSU would have only allowed 4 runs, and in Game 3, they would have only allowed 3 runs, I would have told you that LSU was going to win both those games. And they didn't, because, again, the offense just wasn't good enough. It wasn't up to the standard that they set for themselves this season. Cade Anderson Friday night was solid through the first 4 innings. Had a unfortunate 5th inning, with a couple errors made and a couple balls falling and no man's land and stuff like that. Overall, I thought the bullpen was pretty good, especially they were really good, especially on Saturday and Sunday. Saturday, the LSU bullpen only gave up 1 hit in the final 3 innings of the game on Saturday, and then on Sunday, Zach Cowan and Casey Evans were brilliant, as they've been all season. So I thought the LSU pitching staff as a whole, there were some bad innings here and there, but I really can't complain much about, because you're gonna give up runs in SEC play. Like, it's just a given with how good these offenses are that you're facing. So, I would have expected LSU to score more than 2 runs Saturday and 2 runs Sunday, but unfortunately that's what ended up happening. Yeah, I mean, just I'd say it's back-to-back weeks or back-to-back weekends where, if you go back to the Oklahoma series, now in Game 2 of the Oklahoma series, LSU's offense scored 10 runs, so they were good. But in Games 1 and Games 3 of that series, they struggled, but we didn't talk about it that much because the pitching was so good that you swept the Oklahoma series anyway. And then in the Nichols series, in the Nichols midweek game at Nichols last Tuesday night, you didn't score until the 7th inning when you put 5 runs up in the 7th inning, but you still won that game. But this weekend, you didn't hit well. Like, it wasn't good enough. It wasn't nearly up to the standard that fans and the team expect, because of how deep 1 through 9 this lineup is, and they've proven that this season. And look, I don't think it's something to go hard and push the panic button yet. Like, I'm not gonna rant or anything like that, but yeah, I mean, they weren't up to their standard that they've set by their play so far this season. They weren't good enough, and we'll kind of get into the games now one by one and start breaking them down a little bit. So let's start with Friday night's game 1, that LSU lost to Auburn 8-4. Again, it was Cade Anderson versus Sam Dutton on the mound, and you gotta hand it to Sam Dutton, man. He was just dominant in 6 scoreless innings against LSU. He only allowed 3 hits, and he struck out. He only allowed 3 hits, and he struck out 7 LSU batters. He used his slow, low 70s breaking ball that, just kind of, he was able to locate it, and it really threw the LSU bats off all night. I mean, Sam Dutton just caused a lot of trouble. A lot of Auburn pitchers did this weekend for LSU, but Sam Dutton first and foremost. He was dominant against his former team in 6 scoreless innings on Friday. Chase Fralick hit a 2 RBI double off of Cade Anderson in the second to get the scoring started for Auburn. So it was 2-0. It was pretty much a pitcher's duel throughout the first 4 innings. It was 2-0 Auburn. It was pretty much a pitcher's duel. But then in the 5th, Anderson gave up 4 runs in the 5th, which included a 3 RBI triple for Ike Irish. So again, he gave up those 2 runs off of that Chase Fralick 2 RBI double in the second. But Anderson was pretty solid to the first 4 innings until he gave up 4 in the 5th. And Ike Irish, again, one of the best pitchers we talked about last week on this Auburn team, had that 3 RBI triple that really, I mean, it was 6-0 Auburn after 5 innings on Friday night, and then it was kind of unfortunate the way that the game really played out, or the inning played out, the 5th inning played out. Tanner Reeves made an error in the 5th inning, and then a ball really fell into no man's land due to a shift by the LSU defense, so they couldn't really get to it. So it wasn't all Anderson's fault what happened in the 5th inning. It was just kind of unfortunate. A couple of times this weekend, LSU shifted, and, now obviously Jay Johnson knows what he's doing, but a couple times LSU shifted, and Auburn was just able to hit it right where LSU shifted out of, where there was no fielder there, where if you just play straight up, then a fielder would have been there, right? And that's frustrating, but that's baseball. It happens. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what happened a little bit in the 5th inning Friday night for Cade Anderson. Anderson finished with 4 2/3 innings. He gave up 6 runs. 5 of them were earned on 6 hits, 1 walk, 1 wild pitch, and 6 strikeouts. Again, he was solid through the first 4 innings, but everything everything fell apart for LSU in the fifth. Where after the fifth, you were down, or LSU was down 6-0, and yeah, I mean after that they couldn't really make it up. I will say, Maverick Rizzi was pretty solid in 2 innings of relief work. In 2 innings of relief work for Rizzi, he only gave up 1 run on 5 hits and 2 strikeouts. He was pretty solid. LSU did score 3 runs in the 7th, including a 2 RBI double by Jerry Jones off of Carson Myers, but that was the only, it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to keep up with what the Auburn offense was doing. And again, for the second straight game, going back to Nichols, LSU didn't score, break it open or score until the 7th inning, and they scored 3 runs in the 7th inning, Friday, but it wasn't enough. You were already down 6 runs at that point, and Auburn would eventually add 2 more to not to score at 8-4, which is what it finished as. So it's just the lineup, the LSU lineup, the bat struck out 12 times, a new season high for a single game, and it just looked off all night, man. I mean, 10 flyouts in the game for LSU. A lot of flyouts were hit in every game this weekend. I mean, and I don't know if it's that the guys were just too aggressive at the plate, chasing after pitches, but you could tell they were off balance. And really, the juice and the energy that we've seen from this LSU squad just wasn't there all weekend. It was kind of like, I don't know, it just felt like Auburn had the momentum all weekend. Auburn was playing with energy. Auburn was playing with, swag and all of that. And it just seemed like LSU and was really kind of playing flat at sometimes. And I don't know if that's because you were playing games 5, 6, and 7 of a long road stretch, but maybe that's so, but, it just wasn't good enough, and it felt flat the whole weekend. In Game 2 on Saturday, Auburn won 4-2. Anthony Ianson was pitching on the mound against Cade Fisher was the starter for the Auburn pitching staff. And again, it was just another really tough night for the LSU bats as they flew out 15 times in Game 2 on Saturday, which is entirely way too much to fly out 15 times. I mean, get the ball on the ground at some point, right? Like, make them make a play. Like, hit it hard on the ground. And if they make a play, they make a play. But 15 flyouts is like, a crazy amount. And you don't want that at all, Stephen Milam did actually start the scoring off for LSU. Stephen Milam had a solo bomb in the second off of Cade Fisher. It was Milam's 7th long ball of the season, so that gave LSU the 1-0 lead at that point in the second inning. But then it remained 1-0 until, in the fourth, the LSU bats, again, we talked about it kind of earlier, but you'll see it through these, last 2 games that we talked about, games 2 and 3. LSU left a ton of runners on base in games 2 and 3. And it started in the 4th inning when they were up 1-0 and had the bases loaded in the 4th. But then Chris Stanfield struck out to end the inning, and LSU didn't score a single run in the 4th, even though they had the bases loaded after that Stanfield struck out to end the inning. And then in the bottom half of the 4th, Auburn took the lead with 2 doubles from Ike Irish and Cooper McMurray. So again, you lose, Friday, you go ahead 1-0 in the second inning off of the Milam solo shot, and then you have a chance to add on to that lead. You don't capitalize with the bases loaded in the 4th, and then the next half inning, Auburn scores 2 off of 2 doubles from Irish and McMurray, and now they have the lead and they have the momentum. I mean, it's just, you can't leave as many runners on base as LSU. LSU left a lot of runners on base in games 2 and 3. You can't leave the amount of runners LSU left on base and expect to win in the SEC, especially against a top 10 team like Auburn is on the road. There was a really weird play on the double by Cooper McMurray where Josh Pearson tried to make a diving catch. It kind of, Stanfield and Pearson in the outfield were both going after it. Pearson tried to make a diving catch, but he really, he dropped it. He couldn't come up with it, and that led to the double by McMurray. So that was unfortunate, So Auburn took the 2-1 lead after the fourth, and then they scored 2 more runs in the fifth when Eric Snow hit a 2-run blast basically off the batter's eye, basically to dead center. Eric Snow hit a 2-run blast off of Ianson that gave Auburn the 4-1 lead. Look, I didn't think Ianson was bad either. I didn't think he was that bad. He didn't have a lot of help. He didn't have help on offense, period. And it's tough, especially to last, 5-6 innings when your offense doesn't really give you any help and they never grab the momentum for you. And you just have to go back out there and always, just put it on your shoulders, right? And they were able to do that last weekend against Oklahoma, but the Oklahoma offense that we talked about before, this Auburn offense was much better. You can obviously see that. This Auburn offense had momentum, and they had guys like Chase Fralick, Cooper McMurray, and Ike Irish that were leading the team heading in, and, it just caught you. It caught you, and look, bottom line is, the pitching wasn't bad. Ianson he pitched 5 innings. He gave up 4 earned runs on 6 hits, 1 walk, and 5 Ks, But then in the 6th, 7th, and 8th, the combo of Connor Ware, Connor Benj, and DJ Primo only gave up 1 hit in the final 3 innings of relief in Game 2 for Ianson. LSU only got... The LSU offense only recorded 3 hits and 1 run off of Auburn starter Cade Fisher in 5 innings of work. Just wasn't good enough from the LSU offense. Really lackluster, really flat throughout the weekend, and especially in Game 2. They just could. You have to be able to hit in the clutch, when it matters most. When you have the bases loaded with 2 outs, because you're going to be in those situations when you have the bases loaded with 2 outs, when you have runners in scoring position with 2 outs, you're going to have to score, especially in LSU in SEC play. And LSU was not able to do that at all this weekend.
Well, yeah, and I think timely hitting, which, like you said, hitting in the clutch, timely hitting, I think LSU's been able to thrive off of that all season. And I think this is the first weekend where they've gotten exposed for not being able to hit the ball when they need to hit the ball. Last week against Oklahoma, very low-scoring games, but timely hitting, right?
Mm-hmm.
LSU's played in a lot of close games this year, a lot of tight, low-scoring games, and every single one they've won, it's come from timely hitting.
Yeah.
Against Texas, LSU didn't have that. It's kind of the same issue here. You ran out of offense. You didn't have any offense.
Mm-hmm.
There was no timely hitting, and you can pitch well all you want, and they did this weekend. They pitched very well this weekend, but you can pitch well all you want. If you don't have timely hitting, the pitching goes down the drain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And again, talking about not being able to get a clutch hit when they need it, LSU for the 2nd inning in the game on Saturday left the bases loaded without scoring a run in the 7th when Jake Brown flew out to end the 7th inning, stranding the bases loaded. And LSU, this describes that they were only averaging .202 batting average through 2 games as a team. First 2 games, they were only averaging .202. And it couldn't have gone up that much in the game on Sunday. On Sunday, Auburn won the game 3-2. It was Chase Shore starting the game against Andres Alvarez was on the mound for Auburn. Lineup struggled again. Auburn pitching actually walked 7 LSU batters and hit 2 more batters in the game. LSU was simply never able to capitalize. They gave you opportunities. In Game 2 and Game 3, you were given opportunities to put runs up when you needed it, and you just were not able to get the clutch hit when you needed it at all. The LSU offense only had 2 hits through 7 innings and 4 hits in the entire game on Sunday. It's just... it's just shocking, especially on a Sunday. You're not facing a Friday night guy. Andreas Alvarez give credit to him, but he only had a 7.50 ERA coming into Sunday's game, and that's not that good, you know? So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's because of the long road stretch where you just got tired and you were ready to go back home and play in the box, which you'll have, the next 2 weeks, you're only playing the box. You're not going on the road for the next 2 weeks, which is really nice. But, I mean, just not, it's not like this Auburn pitching staff. They're not bad, but they weren't coming into the series all world. Like, they just weren't. They gave up runs. Alvarez gave up runs. 7.5 ERA. Cade Fisher had some tough games every now and then. But they all had their best outings of the season, basically, against this LSU offense. And, yeah, it was just... It was very surprising. It was disappointing and very surprising and kind of shocking to see. LSU left a lot of runners on base in the middle innings. I mean, in the fourth inning, LSU left runners on second and third. And in the fifth inning, LSU left the bases loaded once again when Daniel Dickinson struck out to end the inning and LSU didn't score a run. I mean, they finally scored 2 runs in the 8th inning, which included a Daniel Dickinson double, Stephen Milam RBI ground out, and a Jake Brown RBI single. But, only putting up 2 runs in the 8th inning alone it's not good enough. And again, they hit 15 flyouts in Saturday's game 2, and they hit 12 they hit 12 Sunday in game 3, and just the approach at the plate never synced. It never clicked for the LSU offense. Chase Shores did only pitch 2 innings. He only pitched 2 innings. He gave up 3 runs on 3 hits, 2 walks, 1 hit by pitch, and 2 strikeouts. And then Zach Cowan and Casey Evans were both brilliant. Both were excellent after Shores left the game. Cowan pitched 4 2/3 scoreless innings and only gave up 4 hits, 1 walk, along with 2 strikeouts. And then Casey Evans pitched 1 1/3 scoreless innings while giving up 2 hits as well. But all in all, the hitting was not up to the standard this LSU team has set. The expectation for this LSU lineup is that they're going to be able to hit most weeks. And I still expect them to fix this and get out of the slump that they're in, because they are in kind of a slump right now. Definitely after 3 straight games where you just weren't good enough at the plate. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't good enough. And you have to be able to hit. I mean, the biggest thing for me is in clutch situations, in top 10 matchups, on the road, in the SEC, when you have runners on second and third, or bases loaded with 2 outs, you have to be able to convert those. And LSU was never able to convert those and put any runs on the board in those innings. I mean, it's just... you were never able to gain the momentum. Like, Auburn had the momentum the whole weekend, and you were... Like, I thought... Saturday, when Milam hit the homer to put LSU up 1-0, that LSU was gonna, maybe they can grab the momentum and get the win here in game 2. But then, you strand the bases loaded in the 4th inning without scoring a run, and then the bottom of the 4th inning, Auburn scores 2 runs, takes the lead, and takes the momentum right back, and then that was it for the whole weekend, basically. No doubt about it, very disappointing. Like I said, I'm not pressing the panic button on this team. I don't think this team
absolutely not.
I don't think this team is a bad team. This team still has every single goal in front of them, and they can figure it out. I mean, they're still 6-0 undefeated in home games in the SEC, and their next 2 series are at home. So,
and it really needs to be said too. This was not mentioned yet. LSU kind of got baseballed this week. Lloyd mentioned it in the show this morning. LSU had to deal with a pretty shit umpire. I know he was bad both ways, but I mean, it's hard playing on the road with a shit umpire.
Yeah.
You also had to deal with the weather on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And Auburn's left fielder turned into Bo Jackson, like a Gold Glover, you name it. I mean, that dude was robbing base hit after base hit, it felt like, and he was even stealing foul balls, making sliding catches. And another thing, Auburn's outfield's weird.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of factors that go into this, and I don't want to pile it all on the team because this was their 6th game on the road in the SEC in a row. And I think LSU kind of ran into some shitty conditions. They see Sam Dutton on the mound on Friday, who has it out for him, as he should. And, yeah, I mean, they get baseball this week, and they get swept, which they were due. They have 3 losses on the season. That's pretty rare. I think the only team better than them at that is Tennessee. I think Tennessee might have less losses. I'm not quite sure what the records of the other teams are. But LSU has 3 losses. Now they have, I guess, 6 now. But going into this series, they had 3 losses on the entire season. That's impressive.
I mean, you're still 31-6 overall and 10-5 in conference play.
Right.
I mean, it's not like, I mentioned it last weekend, and I'm not saying this team is going to win a national championship. I think they have the talent. They have all the talent in the world to be a championship team this year. They do. They do. I really think that.
Well, and looking at it, too, the first step to becoming a national champion in the modern era of college baseball, I feel like, is just getting to the top 8 seed.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a stat besides Mississippi State, Ole Miss, because we know they were not top 8 seeds. How many teams were top 8 seeds and have won it? Probably overwhelming majority, if I had to say. I would say the overwhelming majority were national champions, were previously top 8 seeds. So I think that's the first step, and I think LSU honestly kind of close to locking it up. We're about halfway through SEC play right now, and they're pretty damn close. I think they need to get to 17, 18, 19 wins for that.
You need
So 8 more wins?
You need probably 7 or 8.
Yeah,
I mean, right now you're ranked number 9 in the country, and according to D1 now, LSU can definitely still get there, and I think, especially as we close this show, kind of something to talk about is the fact that you're in the back half of SEC play now. And your next 5 weeks, your next 5 series, your last 5 series are against.
You play home 3 weekends
in a row. You play home the next 2 weekends, and then you play on the road, play at home.
Wait, so next 3 weekends as in Bama?
So you play Bama this upcoming weekend at home, who's number 15 in the D1 baseball poll.
Yep.
The weekend after that, you play home against Tennessee, who's number 2 in the D1 baseball poll. The weekend after that, you play at Texas A&M, who, yes, they had a rough start to the season, but they won a series against Tennessee on the road last weekend, and they just got done sweeping South Carolina. So Texas A&M didn't start well, but they're kind of on fire. They're on a bit of a roll, a bit of a run right now. So that A&M team is hot right now. After A&M, you have number 2 team in the country, Arkansas, coming home to play you. And then you go to South Carolina and play at South Carolina to end the season. So look, that is what? That is 2 teams in the top 5. 2 teams in the top 5. 3 top 15 teams, and then Texas A&M, who is got a lot of momentum lately. We won the last 5 of their last 6 SEC games. So, look, I mean, the back half of the schedule is no joke. Like, I've said it all season. The back half of the schedule is where you're going to really, you want to talk about a resume builder. If you're able to snatch a series win against either Arkansas or Tennessee at home, that would be a tremendous series build or resume builder for this team. So no, you don't have the goal isn't top 8 seed, absolutely, which you definitely don't have locked at this point, but you have the ability to build a resume, to solidify that resume over the next 5 weeks, especially in those 2 huge series against Tennessee and Arkansas. So look, I mean, I'll be interested to see over the next 2 weeks, because again, you were playing 7 straight games on the road, and you haven't played a home game since a week and a half ago. Well, your next 2 weeks you have 2 midweek games at home, and you have your 2 SEC series are both at home the next 2 weeks. So you were at home for the next 2 weeks where you were undefeated 6-0 in SEC play at home. So look, this LSU team still has everything in front of them. I'm still confident. I still like what this team has shown so far this season. You got to be able to hit better. You were not good enough at the plate this weekend. I think Jay Johnson and the team can and will figure it out. But yeah, I mean, look, it's just this is kind of SEC baseball. I mean, Auburn wasn't a slouch. Like, they're number 8 in the country now. Like, they're a good team. They're a really good team. They have a chance to be a top 8 seed. Definitely a chance to host a regional. And so, look, I mean, you were on the road this weekend against the top 10 team and a team who had a lot of momentum coming in. And look, you just kind of, like you said, Christian, you just kind of got baseball. Like, this is what happened. Like, you think Tennessee, who was number 1 in the country, expected last weekend coming in at home playing against Texas A&M, who was 1-8 in their first 3 series of SEC play. You think Tennessee expected to lose 2 out of 3 at home against a 1-8 Texas A&M team? No, they absolutely did not.
I think it's like the equivalent to, this is kind of a way off comparison, but you know how in basketball, if you make a stupid play or something and the other team who hasn't scored in a while comes down and bangs a 3 and they've been cold for 5 minutes? Mm-hmm. This is kind of what that Auburn series felt like. It felt like, LSU had things rolling, and then the weather hit Friday. They're not hitting too well in the beginning of the game, and then bang, they get swept. Like, that's kind of what it felt like. And I think a lot of it has to do with them playing on the road for 2 weeks in a row. I think it's tough to do that in the SEC. It has to be. And,
yeah, I mean, look.
And they didn't even play the midweek game at home. They couldn't get a bathroom spot at Nichols. So, like, I think this all plays a factor into it, and I'd like to see LSU back at home this week.
I think, again, don't press the panic button.
No.
Don't press. Now, I will say this, and I hate saying this. I really do, but I think with the fact that you have Tennessee at home coming up and Arkansas at home coming up, getting 2 out of 3 against Alabama is a must.
Yeah.
Like, I really think it's a must.
Yeah.
I hate doing that at this point in the season, but I think Alabama has lost their last 2 SEC series against Auburn, and they lost 2 out of 3 against Mississippi State at home, who you swept at home. So I think to get a 2 out of, you need to win this Alabama series. Like, I will be concerned if they lose the Bama series, which I don't think they will, but we'll preview that Bama team later in the week in our preview episode before that series starts on a Thursday night this weekend. But Christian, let's go through the schedule for this week coming up. So we are filming this on Monday, April 14th. So tomorrow night, LSU plays McNeese at home at 6:30 tomorrow night. Tuesday night in the box at home. Play McNeese for their midweek game at 6:30 tomorrow night, Tuesday, April 15th. And then Thursday, April 17th, LSU starts a 3-game home series in the box against Alabama, who is number 15 in the D1 baseball poll. So Bama's not bad, but like I said, they've lost 4 out of their last 6 SEC games.
Well,
so they're kind of,
due. That's what that means. They're due.
Yeah, but
hate to say it, but
so are you after this weekend.
Yeah, right.
So are you after this weekend. And
I agree.
Being at home, getting to come back home, a place where you're 6-0, you're undefeated in the SEC play at home is going to be big. That game Thursday, first game, it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series due to Easter weekend. That Thursday game is at 7, Friday game is at 6, and that Saturday game is at 5. So, yeah, I mean, tough weekend against Auburn for LSU, but still feel pretty good about where this team sits. I mean, they're still 10-5 through the first half of SEC play, so it'll be interesting to see getting to come back home for 2 weeks and getting to see, how they play against Alabama this weekend is going to be really key, setting up for series against Tennessee and Arkansas at home and A&M on the road the 3 weekends after that. So we appreciate you taking the time to listen to this show. Leave a like, leave a like, subscribe, comment, give your thoughts on what you think from this weekend. Maybe, what you saw, how you're, a vibe check maybe a little bit, how you're feeling halfway through SEC play. 15 of 30, so you played 15 SEC games. You've got 15 to go before postseason play. So, thank you guys for tuning in, and we hope you have a good one.